There comes a point in your life where you look up and are disgusted. Disgusted with yourself, your habits, the people around you, just the life that you're choosing to live. Because you know you have so much more potential, but you're not realizing any of it. And you ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I living like this? Why am I choosing to be mediocre? And when you come to this realization, you might consider doing something a little extreme, a completely new lifestyle that proves to yourself that you're not the same person anymore, that you won't fall back into those same traps. And if you decide this lifestyle is for you, it's important that you know the benefits, the costs, and where you might end up. This is the monk. I remember the last time I went through a period like this, where I locked myself away, focused on my goals, cut every single person off. And the minute I decided that enough was enough was actually on my birthday a few months ago. You know, that's usually the happiest day of everybody's year. But me, I was alone, in my bedroom, with my head in my hands, wondering how my life got like this. Because like I told you, I'd come to that realization that I needed a change. But there I was, on my birthday, and I'd just gotten a text from my best friend. Hey man, it's been a while since we've talked. I haven't really gotten a hold of you. But I hope you're doing so well and that you had the best day, because you deserve it. And I felt like such an asshole. Because this guy was one of the best friends I could ever ask for. Someone I used to talk to every single day. But lately, I declined every single call, hadn't responded to a single text, because I was on this path. I was trying to become a monk and correct all the decisions I was so frustrated with. But what made it so shitty for me in that moment was I knew he was going through something as well. He had just changed his job. He was stressed out of his mind in a new city, and he wasn't adjusting well. And I knew if the tables had turned, if I was the person going through all of this, he would pick up the phone in an instant. Because when you're trying to go into this new phase of life, when you're trying to become a monk, it's important that you understand what you're doing and what choices you're making. Because there are benefits and there are drawbacks. So it's important to understand, what does it mean to be a monk? Because what we see right now when we're scrolling through social media on our shorts and reels is a watered down version. It's something that's optimized for Instagram and clicks. Because the original monk mode was about an ascending lifestyle, taking the pieces of your life that you're not happy with and adding to them and leveling them up until you become that new version of yourself. It wasn't about cutting everybody off, making $10,000 a month, locking yourself away in your room. But that's just what's popular now. Going quiet on socials, saying no to everything, waking up at the same time, eating the same thing, working the same amount of hours. And I'm not saying that doesn't have its advantages, that can't be beneficial for you. But it's important to understand that this lifestyle you're about to choose has many different options and many different pathways. It's important that we talk about why it appeals to people in the first place. Well, from my observations, there's a couple main things that pull you towards it. The first is often disgust, and it's that reaction when you look around at yourself, at the people around you, and realize that you're unhappy with where you are. You see the habits, the people, the way you're falling shorts, and you're so fed up, so fucking mad at yourself that you want to get rid of everything at once. This was my own story. When I saw the bad habits I was doing, how I saw my own business, Ivy Station Records, dying, how I traded in the productive evenings for another drink with my friends, or a night where I was smoking weed, or just sitting watching TV. And after a few months of this, after watching my own progress stagnate, I was fucking done. And I thought that this was the answer. But it's not the only thing that pulls you towards this lifestyle. It could also be a statement. And this is not so much intrinsically motivated, it's extrinsic. It's a way that you can look at people around you and say, look at me, I'm about to do something so extreme. And that's still beneficial, but you should be honest of where your motivations and reasons come from. Then you get to the third stage, which is proof. It gets a little bit performative. This is when you make that declaration to yourself or to other people and you start on this lifestyle. And you realize that you can't stop. You can't look like the bitch who made all of these statements and then quits 2 weeks in. So you have to keep going. You have to keep up the same lifestyle, no matter how unpleasant it is, how much you hate these new things that you're forcing yourself to do. Then you might get on the fourth stage, and that's with the content that we consume. Now, this might have been a big part of why you made this decision in the first place. But like I said, social media is littered with people talking about monk mode, their transformations, their habits, their weaknesses. And if you keep watching the right creators, there's a certain aesthetic to it that makes this very appealing because you think to yourself, if these people made such great changes, why can't I? And then finally, once monk mode stops being a challenge, in a way, it becomes your escape. Because like we said, the initial point of monk mode was to push yourself, to do things you're not used to cut out things from your life that you're not happy about. But as you start living this lifestyle, it starts becoming comfortable. You start getting used to saying no to things. You start liking being alone all the time, locked away in your room. There's an event that you know you should go to, but you're starting to feel a little bit antisocial after so many months locked away. So you tell yourself, no, I have to work tonight, I have to get this thing done. And even though you know you should be going, you're able to convince yourself that this was the right step, and you use this new protocol and lifestyle that you're going through as the ultimate justification. But as much as what I've said over the last few minutes might seem a little negative, I can't deny that this lifestyle or journey that you're considering embarking on doesn't have its positives as well. The first is direction, because before you embark on this protocol, there's probably something that you're not happy with or a certain goal that you have in mind. And if you do strip away the distractions, if you do spend a lot more time alone, if you do start dedicating more time towards progress and those goals, that's inherently a good thing because you stop negotiating with yourself constantly. You stop telling yourself, oh, I'll do 2 hours of work after I get home from the bar on Friday. Oh, I'll be healthy tomorrow after I order this last meal of takeout. So if you're in a stage where your priorities are in order, where your time is split between so many things that you know you shouldn't be doing, cutting things out and refocusing yourself and your energy can be a very positive thing. And once you start adopting this schedule and getting these habits that you've always wanted to do, then you start forming a new identity of yourself. These first few weeks, when you actually stick to this new schedule and lifestyle that you laid out for yourself, can be very positively reinforcing. If you wake up early, if you're doing the work and knocking out the goals that you set out for yourself, if you're finally eating clean and staying consistent on a diet, working out like you never have before, you start watching yourself actually make a commitment to a new version of yourself. And that feels a little bit different. You start looking in the mirror feeling a little bit proud because you feel accomplished. You know you're not wasting your time anymore. And when you go to sleep every single night, you're even a bit satisfied with yourself. And that's a really good feeling. And the third is a proof of concept. Because for someone who had never trusted themselves before, who had never proven to themselves that they are capable of changing things and doing something better, when you stick to this lifestyle, when you have a new direction, when you're starting to form this new identity and you keep going and going, it starts substantiating and you start looking at yourself different. Now you know this isn't just a short trend. It's not something that you're doing for a few weeks. This can be a new sort of lifestyle that you actually adopt for yourself, and that the next time you have a big goal in mind, you actually have the means to achieve it. But like all things in life, it can't just be positives. This new lifestyle that you're considering adopting has many drawbacks too that you have to be aware of so you don't fall into the common pitfalls. The first is that you might become a slave to your new routine. Because yes, maybe some of the habits that you're doing is beneficial, but that becomes your entire life. Yes, you're productive. Yes, you're doing work. But also, you stop living. Your life just becomes your routine, one habit after another. If you hit a milestone, you don't celebrate. If you're feeling lonely, there's no one to go to. And the quality of your life, that little bit of secret sauce that inspires you, that makes everything that you're doing worth it, starts to disappear. And that isolation that you find yourself in becomes a crutch. After a while, it stops being a tool that cuts out all the bad habits and gets you focused. And it starts being a way for you to avoid new types of discomfort that you've developed. Because now, you've been alone for so long that going out, being around people, finding new friends feels weird. Meeting new people feels hard. Striking up conversations feel awkward. A third weakness is that monk mode often requires perfect conditions that might not always exist. Because you control every minute of your life. The time you wake up, what time you eat, how you never answer your phone, how you're always alone with no distractions. But life doesn't always work that way. And this was one of the biggest things I struggled with. Because before I moved to this new city to start my graduate school program, I'd spent a few months at home. And it was so easy to be productive because there's no one to disturb me. I controlled my entire schedule. There's no extrinsic factors that would ever mess me up. But once I moved to this new city, suddenly I was moving into a new apartment. I was in this new city, so I felt like I had to explore. I was starting a new program, so I had all these people that I wanted to meet and that I was suddenly around. There are all these events going on for orientation that I feel like I couldn't miss out on. And when I wasn't in that perfect environment anymore, when there were new distractions that I wasn't used to dealing with, I found something interesting. All that discipline, all the good habits that I developed when I'd isolated myself, they weren't really enough. And my routine started falling apart. My bad habits started creeping back in. And finally, the biggest drawback of all of this is that when you live this monotonous, boring lifestyle, you start forgetting what it was all for in the first place. Because I'm sure when it started, you weren't grinding just to grind. You weren't putting all that work just for nothing. There were goals you had in mind, experiences that you wanted to live, things you wanted to do, and you wanted to do all of that with people, right? The people that you love, the people that were important to you. But after some time of living this lifestyle, all of that became so cloudy and it just got replaced with the grind itself. So if this is a lifestyle that you're considering, if this is an archetype that you want to adopt, you have to be honest with yourself. And I realized that for me, if I stayed on monk mode for the rest of my life, I would live the most boring life ever told, be broke, and be invisible, and more sad than when I started this process in the first place. That wasn't the lifestyle for me, and there's a big chance that it might not be the lifestyle for you. So what is? And this is a challenging question, because it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. Now you know that 100% of staying isolated and alone all the time isn't the best for your success, but the old version of you, full of pleasures, full of distractions, none of the work, was also sad and on the wrong track. So you have to find the right balance. And online, I know I've been seeing people talking about an 80-20 lifestyle, where 80% of the time you're doing the right things, you're stacking the good habits, and 20% of the time you let life happen. Maybe a drink with friends, maybe a cheat meal or two, maybe a trip with people that you hadn't planned. And in theory, this all sounds good, but it's hard to practice this because if you don't have the right experience, trying to find this balance is very delicate. The 80-20 can soon become 70-30, 50-50, and all of a sudden, you're right back to the start, where you're spending more time on the pleasures, the bad habits, the things you were trying to get away from in the first place, and all the good habits that you spent building up have become such a small portion of your life that you're right back to square one. So instead of telling yourself that 6 days a week I'm going to lock myself in, do the work, and 1 day a week I'm just going to be completely off, you have to find the habits that you can actually let back into your life. And this is going to be different for every single person because you have to decide, what can I add back into my life that not only makes me live happier, sets me up for better success, makes me a more balanced individual, but doesn't risk derailing months and months of progress by snowballing and becoming a problem. Because for me personally, once I decided that monk mode wasn't the path, I tried all sorts of things and I found out that having lunch with some of my school friends once a week just to catch up, see what's going on, was a good thing. It gave me more ideas for my videos, made me a happier person, made me feel socially connected. But if I decided to smoke weed once a week, that would easily become 2 times a week, 3 times a week, and then the bad habit I was trying to get away from became a problem again. Now for you, maybe it's weed, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's another vice that you know you can't let back in. But there's something else, going on a trip once a month, having dinner with friends, watching a movie from time to time, having a date night. Maybe these are things that'll refresh you, that'll add to the person that you're trying to be, that'll add to your lifestyle. Because the most important thing is that the reason you're doing this is building a life that's worth living. Not a schedule, not a routine, a life filled with the discipline, filled with the work that you should be doing, but also those points in time where life just happens, where you enjoy the fruits of your labor, where you enjoy the person that you're becoming, and use those experiences, use those rewards to motivate you to push even farther. That's the main problem I have with monk mode, and that's also one of the things you have to watch out for. Now, you're the only person who can decide if this lifestyle, if this archetype is right for you. But I really encourage you to remember a few things. If you decide to go on this path, don't shut yourself away completely. Don't close the door. Leave it open just a crack so that life can happen sometimes. Because the problem with monk mode isn't that it's bad. In my mind, it's just incomplete. Because you can't live a life just by your schedule, where you're alone all the time, in a grind you'll eventually end up hating while building new weaknesses you didn't even have in the first place. You have to find that balance where you are more disciplined, where you can reach a new level, but you still leave enough room for things that you enjoy. Not the bad habits that'll throw you off course, but the things that'll add new inspiration, new layers to your life, that'll actually push you forward in the long run. Because there's a version of yourself that I'm sure you're envisioning right now that you want to reach. But I promise you, that version of yourself that you're imagining isn't the one who locks himself in his room for the rest of his life, with no friends, no family, and no memories to enjoy. It's one that's found the perfect balance. And only you can answer the question of what that means to you. And it's something that you'll grow into as you go deeper into this process. But I just have the utmost confidence you will be the person to find that perfect balance. You will be the person who actually builds that life that they enjoy and that everyone you care about can enjoy with you. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could give me a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be posting videos like this once a week, and I'd also recommend checking out the links in my description. The first is my newsletter, where I go a little bit deeper into my own experiences with monk mode, the challenges that I faced, and the new life that I'm trying to build. I also have a few other sections where I'm updating you on my goals, trying to keep myself accountable, and sharing some music that I enjoy in my life, whether that's in the gym, whether I'm working, or just living life. I also have my Instagram link down below, where I'm trying to be better about posting multiple times a week, giving you more of a behind-the-scenes look and insights into what I'm working on, the life that I'm living when I'm not recording these videos, and anything else going on. And finally, I mentioned it a couple times, but I do run my own record label, Ivy Station Records, and I have that link down below. I'd highly recommend that if you want some good music to work to chill to make a part of your life, check out the playlist, check out the link down below. And if you enjoy, I'd really appreciate it if you could follow me on those platforms as well. But whether you decide to click on any of those links, whether I see you again or not, I do really appreciate your time, and I thank you for being here with me. I'm very excited about the progress that all of us can make. And whatever goals you have in your mind, just know that you can do it. You just have to put your mind to it and build a lifestyle that fits.